Have you ever wondered what life looks like for narcissists at the end? Do you ever wonder what happens to a narcissist at the end of life, towards the end of their lives? If you've ever wondered, I tell you this video is going to answer your question. And the first thing that happens to a narcissist is, towards the end of his life, is vengeance catches up with him. God's judgment catches up with him. And if you read the Bible, you will see stories like that of narcissists who had God's judgment fall upon them. And I'll give you 3 examples. Now, the first one is that of David and Saul. Saul was a narcissist to the core. He was self-absorbed. He hated David. He wanted to hunt him down just because David was prosperous on the battlefield and people were praising him. And of course, he did all sorts, tried to use his son Jonathan against David. So many things that he did, tried to kill David several times. But eventually, judgment caught up with Saul, and we all know how the story ended. Second story is that of Ahab and Naboth. Now, Ahab was a weak king who was married to Jezebel, and he wanted the vineyard of Naboth, but Naboth didn't want to give him. And so Jezebel contorted a plan, made a plan to hurt Naboth so that Ahab can have the vineyard. And so they had the vineyard, but God's judgment came through Elijah the Tishbite. And so God told Elijah, go and tell them, both of them, that is Ahab and Jezebel, that the same place that Naboth's blood was spilled is the same place their own blood will be spilled. And dogs will lick their blood. And that is exactly what happened. That is God's judgment catching up with Ahab and Jezebel. Yet another story is that of Haman and Mordecai. And so Haman hated Mordecai and the Jews, and he wanted them to be destroyed. But eventually God's judgment caught up with him because Haman was a Narcissist too. He didn't like the fact that Mordecai didn't bow to him when others did, because he was like the topmost prince in the kingdom. He was elevated by the king. And so he made a gallows for Mordecai. But eventually the gallows was used to kill him. And so basically, at the end of the life of a narcissist, judgment does catch up with them. Now, the second thing that happens is they are miserable and frustrated at life. Because, as they grow old, they cannot hunt new supplies as they used to when they were younger. Their looks may have diminished, their energy may have dipped, and they are unable to go out and hunt for new supplies. And they need these supplies to feel good. And so when these supplies are not available, because they are growing old, they tend to be miserable and frustrated. And also they tend not to have the energy to keep their narcissistic games going. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of calculation to do the kind of things that narcissists do to keep people down. But when they're growing old, they are unable to keep up with that level of callousness because the strength is no longer there, the energy is no longer there. And so they basically become frustrated. And the third thing that happens is that they become alone and lonely. I'll explain. Now, alone means nobody is with them because the narcissist may have burned bridges with family, burned bridges with friends, even burned bridges with a partner who has left. And so they are alone. That happens to narcissists. But in case they are not alone, they are lonely. even if they have people around them, because people cannot understand their world. And so they are in the midst of people, but still lonely. And so that happens to narcissists because people cannot really relate to the things that go on in their minds, to the things that go on in their narcissistic world. And so they feel lonely. Now, the fourth thing that happens is they are angry at life. They are bitter. They always blame somebody else for something that has happened to them. They never take responsibility. They never take accountability, even in their old age. And so you will find that they are bitter. They are always blaming somebody. If this person hadn't done this, I wouldn't have been in this situation. I would have been better off. They never, ever take responsibility. And towards the end of their lives, they self-reflect a lot. They sometimes question their decisions. They sometimes question their decisions. And the idea of death also takes hold of them. They see it as the total collapse. They see it as a total loss of identity. Because narcissists thrive on control, being able to control things, being able to control people. And so death seems like something they cannot control. And so the idea haunts them, basically. The idea does haunt them a lot. And so if you're asking what happens to narcissists at the end of their lives, you've just seen it in this video. And if this video blessed you, or you've got experience with a narcissist close by, do go ahead and share in the comments. And don't forget to watch the next video on your screen.